Thousands, thousands of people flocked to Rome last week or the week before to celebrate the extraordinary life of the boy Carlo Acutis, who was about to be canonized, the first millennial saint, only to find themselves mourning the death of the Pope who approved his sainthood. And yet they stayed and they sang and they prayed not just for Pope Francis, but perhaps to him for his intercession. Carlo Acutis was no mystic recluse or martyr. He was a teenager from Milan who loved Pokemon, wore Nike trainers, and built a website cataloguing Eucharistic miracles. He was diagnosed with leukemia at 15. He offered his sufferings to Christ, telling his mother, "I'm happy to die because I've lived my life without wasting even a minute on things that don't please God." A miracle in Brazil involving the healing of a child with a malformed pancreas, and a second miracle in Costa Rica, both medically inexplicable, have cleared the path for his canonization. The Vatican recognizes him as a symbol for young Catholics in a digital age, and his body lies in a glass tomb in Assisi, the place where St. Francis of Assisi is from. Wearing jeans and a hoodie, he is a modern, accessible, and yet profoundly devout individual, an embodiment of the possibility that sanctity is not reserved for the cloistered, but is compatible with Instagram and Excel spreadsheets. And then there's Pope Francis, a life in the shadow of holiness, and it's fitting then that one of Pope Francis's final acts was to approve Carlo's canonization along with the beatification of 7 other servants of God. It was a gesture of a pope who spent over a decade broadening the Church's sense of sanctity, from the canonization of Oscar Romero, the martyr of El Salvador, to the quiet veneration of the poor, the migrant, the forgotten. He is responsible for the canonization of more saints than any other pope, and now unexpectedly attention turns to Francis himself. Could he too be on the immediate path to sanctity? One story looms large. In 1996, while still Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Jorge Bergoglio oversaw the investigation of what is arguably the most medically compelling Eucharistic miracle in modern times. A desecrated host placed in a tabernacle, inexplicably transformed into cardiac tissue, alive, inflamed, and consistent with trauma, as confirmed by a team of scientists in New York. The white blood cells found in the sample suggest that the heart was still alive when the tissue was taken, which is biologically impossible unless one accepts the premise of divine intervention. And this miracle, verified under Francis's watch, was quietly filed away. He never paraded it, but its rediscovery after his death is prompting a quiet but growing murmur. Could this pope have been touched by the miraculous in more ways than one? Unlike his predecessor, Pope John Paul II, Pope Francis didn't present himself as a global patriarchal figure. He was a Jesuit and a pastor, a reformer, who upset traditionalists and frustrated progressives in equal measure. His embrace of same-sex couples, his warnings about climate change, his call to end clerical privilege, all drew ire from the papal system, and yet the faithful who gathered for his funeral didn't weep as they had in 2005. They sang, they rejoiced. In his lifetime, Francis canonized over 900 saints. He modernized the saint-making process, simplified the beatification steps, and made saints of figures long ignored: indigenous Americans, black Catholics, even lay teenagers. He changed not just who can be a saint, but what it means to be one. So out of the 266 popes in church history, only 80 have been canonized. And since the 17th century, sainthood has not come automatically with papal office. And Francis, unlike John Paul II, had no crowd shouting "Sancto subito" at his funeral. Yet his record, his humility, his steadfast care for the poor, and now the whispered tales of miracles in Naples and Poland make the question legitimate. The process will begin, if at all, after the mandatory 5-year waiting period. But let's be clear, the true test will not be the Vatican's files, but the faith of the people. As one priest put it, it's not the Pope who makes a saint, it's the people who pray to one. So in this strange convergence of mourning, of miracles, of an incredibly speedy process from the death of the late Pope to his funeral, in less than a week. That is profoundly speedy for the Catholic Church. And during the immediate week following Easter, when traditionally no funerals are held, we may be witnessing not just the making of a saint, but the first stirrings of another saint. So not just the making of Carlo Acutis, the digital age saint, but Pope Francis, the saint maker, who may himself be canonized. In a church where the miraculous meets the mundane, perhaps this moment is itself a sign, a quiet invitation to believe again, not in perfection, but in grace.